Hey folks, and welcome to The Salty Seaman, Tales from the Fleet. Go ahead and doing a follow-up to the last one because last time, I finished talking about my time in Fox Division, Firewatch on the Blue Ridge, and one of the more pleasant times from that era. Definitely, just in terms of work that I remember. And when I finished, I was trying to think like, okay, then we had the summer and ultra focus lens. I'm like, did anything interesting happen? Like, I don't. At the time, I was drawing a blank, and then like suddenly I remember like, oh yeah, that happened. So I think it'd be a good time to just maybe delve on that and focus on it. I might go a little bit further. We'll see how time goes. But as you saw at the beginning of the video, I put up some disclaimers because a lot of this is, it's not fact, it's not verifiable. It's a lot of speculation and rumor, but it's things I heard from multiple sources, which of course doesn't mean anything, but it does lend credence to a lot of things, especially how I know things went down and people who are in positions to, know exactly what happened said like this is not what got reported on the official books. However, of course, being rumor, speculation, and not looking to even 22 years later, looking to get anyone in trouble or at least even question, especially if it's not true. I hate to be that guy, but I think it's important for my story to tell this part of it because how this all went down and what I heard afterwards definitely shaped my experience in the Navy and who I was as a sailor because I think it taught me at least in various ways how the Navy operated. The personal, possible criminal. I don't even want to say that because again, this is tough to talk about in that realm because I'm not looking for. I'm going to try and tell my story. I'm not trying to throw anyone under a bus or create confusion or spread anything that may or may not be true. But I feel it's important for my story to tell this, so I will. And basically, the story starts. It's the sea trials following the import period in Japan, which I just talked about on the last one. We had our first day underway. We had a change of command coming up, and I believe I left off the previous chain of command from '96, which would have been the admiral ceremony. It was my first time, having to get in whites, put my one national defense medal at the time. I had to actually wear the medal, and we had to stand, parade rest, basically manning the rails in port during the admiral's change of command ceremony. We went to Admiral Natter. So the Blue Ridge had a change of command every year, one for the admiral, one for the captain. This time the captain was coming up. This is Captain Terry Lebrecq. Who I am friends with on Facebook and have talked to, and a lot of this stuff, a lot of stuff that I've talked about here, and just other stuff. He's actually a member of our Facebook group and has provided some interesting insight as a captain of a ship would. So, Terry, if you're listening, again, I'm going on what the Ricky rumors, what the Mestex rumors were, what I heard. Right or wrong. Don't know, but this is what I heard at the time, and this is what I experienced. So we had about probably in June, a couple weeks before the change of command ceremony, and it was literally the captain's last day underway on the ship, which makes it all the more interesting, especially from other stuff. We had it underway. We had to go do sea trials. We had to go test out, make sure we're still in good working order before we did our summer stuff, which includes a bunch of port visits and then the ultra focus lens exercise with South Korea, which I talked about last year, the year before we had done as well. So we get underway, and I don't remember anything about other than it's underway. I'm in the office. I'm back to working under Mayhew. Not the greatest happiness in the world, but my best friend working next to me We had this guy, Bay, YN3 Bay, Jeremy Bay came in. Very cool guy, came from our shore detachment. And he came in to help. Drake was there. YN2 Tate was still there. Hassler, Tassie, and Yabara were gone at this point. KB was still there. Krantz was still there. Hall was still there. And we get two more guys from the shore detachment later on. We'd also get a striker, Keisha Major, from deck. By this point, I think it's Bay, me, Brett, KB, and I'm pretty sure Hall was up there by that point. Hall was, from what I understand, he was the CMC's personal yeoman, and he got booted out for porn. This is the wild, wild days of the internet. We hadn't quite gotten to, really good lockdowns on. I think he just missed getting a mass case because it was so new at the time. It really, really was new. A few months after that, at that point, if you got caught looking at porn on the internet on your work computer, it was a almost guaranteed mass case. And I have I have a few things about that, but that's further on as the internet became more of a thing. But at this point, that was our office. I wasn't happy to be back. I was happy to be back hanging out with Brett, and I really like Jeremy. But yeah, we're underway. It's early morning. The ship is pulled out. We're pulling out into Tokyo Bay from Yokosuka Harbor to it's a lot of traffic. It's just ships everywhere. Moving around like we are. Some anchored. Whatnot. Not my world. I don't. I'm not a QM. I'm not a navigator. I'm not on the bridge. I wasn't even a phone talker for sea and anchor. I had nothing to do with it. I'm just aware. And we're sitting in the office, whatever the time was, 9:30, 10 o'clock. And I feel the ship kind of move in a weird way. Like it felt like a car trying to go forward in neutral, and it's kind of getting that stop kind of motion going. And you felt like this kind of rhythmic, stuck in place, trying to get out of the car's in neutral or you're stuck in mud or something like that. And I've been on the ship a year and change at this point, and I never felt anything like that before. So I immediately look up from my work, and I'm looking around, and no one else in the office is reacting. So I'm figuring well, okay, so I haven't noticed everything on the ship. Maybe this is a normal thing, and I've just never noticed or experienced it before. So I go back to work, and probably 30 seconds later, Sergeant White, he was a Marine with a Marine comm detachment that worked next door. Sergeant White was a cool dude. He was ex-Navy, ex-boatswain's mate / deck seaman. So he had a lot of sympathy for what we did. He wasn't one of those Marines who thought he was better than the Navy or anything. Most Marines who did time on the ship, I always found learned to respect us, wherever they came from. Sergeant White definitely above and beyond cool cat. But he comes running in the office and he's like, "We just hit a tanker." And I'm thinking so that's what it was. I wasn't wrong thinking that was weird. But the funny part of it was the reason was he came and told in a weird cynical thing, because it hit the aft port sponson, which was a smoke, near the smoking area, and that's where he came from. He was out smoking, and so he came and he basically tell me and I think me and Brett were the only ones who smoked in the office at the time. It was like, "Hey, if you want to get a cigarette and check out the damage, you might want to go out now before they secure it." So of course they, now as soon as all this goes down, you start hearing things. I think bells are starting to go off. We run out. So me and Brett run outside, both to see it, and both was like, well, God knows when the next time we have a cigarette. So let's try to burn as much as we can, which we did. So we go outside, and yes, there's been obvious damage. There's already bosun's mates and other people milling about. Smoking deck is still open. There's a handful of people out, and of course everyone's looking over the side. Me and Brett run out, immediately light up. start sucking them down. And we're watching what's happening. We see the tanker in the background. We're not too far off over now. It wasn't a bad collision. It was about as minor as you can get. I think there was some cosmetic damage to the hull. Maybe some small dents and stuff, and some lifelines have been pulled off basically. But we had scraped against this tanker. And soon, maybe 30 seconds to a minute after we were out there, like I think the bosun came out and ran everybody off as they should. And that this whole thing just became like, it was like oh well, it wasn't that bad, but everyone's like, it doesn't matter. It's like you hit another ship, like that's a huge deal. At the time I didn't know how big of a it was learning as I'm hearing people talk, because I didn't know. I'm like, okay, well, shit happens. It's a minor accident we can easily fix, and we'll probably have to throw a bit of money at the Japanese. It was like a Japanese civilian oil tanker, and it was anchored. It wasn't moving. We were moving. So, that's a big part of the story. And here's a point in the story where, my memory gets a little foggy on specific details. Like I'm almost sure we pulled back in. I mean, we had to, right? But I know we were out very, and I can't 100% remember if that was true, but I know we pulled out, I think essentially the next day or 2 days later to finish the sea trials. But yeah, and then this is where everything starts coming out. So like, what happened and why? Being a little seaman in the captain's office, I don't hear everything, and I was not part of the bridge crew or anything else. But you hear things, and paperwork starts flowing, and certain things come to light. And the basic story, just was, it was bad conning from the bridge. Didn't calculate things correctly, and there was like an unexpected movement in the water, and we were supposed to zig when we should have zagged, what have you. But the thing was, here's where the story gets interesting. I start hearing on the smoke deck and the mess decks, what happened, especially as the story comes on. I mean, eventually, we pull in, we get things fixed. We do the sea trials, we come back, we do the change of command ceremony, despite everything going on. There was, from my understanding, there was a young junior officer, was a con, was a Lieutenant JG, and there was another officer on the bridge who was a senior officer, very, very senior actually. The captain was in his stateroom. He was not on the bridge during the moving through the bay, and the XO himself was in the shower. Second time he got caught in the shower during an actual event. First time was another story. I don't think I did earlier. Was, I think maybe the year before, we had like an actual fuel oil leak. Did not lead to an actual main space fire, but we had a GQ right after a drill GQ. We found out actually when shit goes down, we had yoke set, our zebra set, incredibly quick. That was always kind of the thing on the ship, is like, hey, we gotta get zebra set in 7 minutes, and we never quite got it. Zebra was set during that thing for it had to be in 2 minutes. It was amazing. Like, the real shit goes down, people react a lot faster than during a drill. I don't think that there was no GQ called for this, but well, back to the story. The captain immediately comes down from his stateroom and 30 seconds to a minute takes the con, of course, and we go on. Now here's where it gets interesting, because of course you have an NCIS investigation, you have a Navy IG investigation, whatever. It's like everything, in any kind of collision, even one that's just minor and basically cosmetic with a little bit of damage. People are going to come out and see what happened and why, because this is not a thing you need to be doing with a giant warship. And it basically came down to who was bearing the responsibility for this. Obviously, the captain of the ship is always going to have to take responsibility, bear that weight of responsibility. There's just no way to get around that. It's your ship. They're your crew. They're the people you're responsible for training and making sure they know what they're doing. So he's gonna take his brunt. For the officer that was the con, the story I've heard from various sources who said yes, they were on the bridge, yes, they were the con, is not the story the logbooks reflected. The log, the story was the senior officer had the logbooks changed to put that person on being the con vice the junior officer. And sounds like very selfless and heroic, which kind of is. And the reason being is this officer who, was basically finishing out their career. They'd already had a major incident prior on another ship. And, it was a willing sacrifice to keep this young officer's career from being ruined by this incident. And logbooks were changed. People were told to tell other things. Investigation goes down, and basically at the end of the day, the person who, the people who bear the brunt of the trouble was Captain Lebrec and the other officer. The kind of irony of all this is Captain Lebrec, the rumor was meant to pick up his first was meant to pick up Star. He was going to go flag. Even rumors that the change of command coming up in a few weeks, he would be pinned at this change of command ceremony. He was in fact filling a billet where he was going. That was a 1-star billet, from what I remember. Captain Lebrec never put on his star. I think you could, one way or the other, however you look at it, that had to play obviously being the captain of a ship that, had a collision plays into that. But it was nothing, no one went to jail, no one died, no one got hurt, thank God. It was all, just one of those things. Shit happens. And that's, to me, I took it on board as, thinking, when you grow up thinking like, when the big people are playing, they have to do everything by the rules, and there's checks and balances, and yeah, shady stuff happens, but it's very rare. It's not really. And assuming any of this is true, it definitely showed me. And of course, as a young seaman, I'm tending to believe, various people telling me like this is exactly this is what happened, and this person is being protected. Not just to protect them, but just basically just like this is just a thing. Avoidable, possibly avoidable, but it was a really, really difficult situation, and it was, supposed to ruining that person's career. We're going to do this instead, and we're going to fudge some things, which is illegal, of course. And, if anything like that was found out, good chance a lot of people would have gotten a lot worse trouble than what happened. So, I know I'm being a little evasive on this, and it's just because it's like I don't know. That's a rumor. Good chance none of that happened, and it went down exactly as written in the reports. I can't say for sure. I can only say what I saw, and what I heard from my vantage point from back then, which is obviously very, very low level. But again, I know people who work on the bridge and who were there, and they say different. So maybe not. But it was eye opening, and it was a big deal. And anytime anything like that happens, we just had the major collision incidents, same fleet, 7th Fleet last year. Unfortunately, really worse things happen than what happened to us. I can't, really get too upset about it. I think, everyone involved eventually, came out decent. Not maybe not have gone as far as they wanted to, and maybe for certain that young officer's career was saved, and they went on to do something big and bad. I'll never know. But there was definitely the cynicism kind of cut through to me on that, and also just the senior officer, a lot of respect for that person if said thing was true, just for doing that, just to kind of jump on a grenade for them. I mean, That's basically it. We would do the retirement ceremony later. We would get, or not the retirement, the change of command, and I'll get to that because I'd rather start fresh with Captain Meyer, Captain Dave Meyer from this point, because he's a whole different kettle of fish, and I don't want to get him mixed up in this because nothing to do with it. And then my following story with what goes on in the second ultra focus lens. But I thought I'd go ahead and get this out here and try to be as cautious as possible. Just trying to give my perspective of where I was at that moment from the ship. Anyway, that's all I got. Probably this weekend I will be putting up my super, super long delayed 2018 talk and get back on camera on my face for the first time in a while. I'm sure you all miss my beautiful face. But anyway, that's all the Salty Seaman's got for now. I love you, freaks. Peace.